In this tutorial, we're going to create a simple address book application. So after having launched Java Inventor, the first thing we'll do is create a new project. So I'll go ahead and click the New button, and I'll type in Address Book. And this creates our new project, and I'll go ahead and click Open. And this will open the new empty project to our home page. And the first thing we want to do is create a data table to hold the addresses. So I'll go ahead and click the New Data Table button. And this will bring up the table configuration panel, and I'll type in a name for the table, friend. And I'll go ahead and name the first column, name, and then I'll go ahead and add address, city, state, zip, and phone. So I'll go ahead and click OK, and this will create our new empty table. And we could go ahead and do some direct entry just by clicking the Add Record button. And I'll go ahead and type in my friend John Doe, who lives on Main Street in New York. I'll give him a phone number. But I can also import existing data from a spreadsheet or tab delimited clipboard or a file. And I happen to have a file of addresses here. So I could copy and paste this in, or I can just drag and drop. And so it imports all the addresses, and once I've approved them, I go ahead and say import. And so now all of these addresses are in our database. So now we need a form to edit this in an application. And we can use the user interface builder to create a new JavaFX form, but we can also use the automatic forms generation just to get started. And so, this lets us select the table we want to create a form for. We can rename the header text, so I'll call this Address Book. And then we can select fields from our table. So I'll select name, address, and city, state, zip, and phone. So having created this form now, I can just hit save, and I'll go ahead and call this Address Input, and click OK. And so now we have an existing form for our data table. If I go ahead and click Run, this will go ahead and run this as a separate JavaFX application. And we can come in here and navigate through our addresses, or add or remove new addresses. Add our friend Susan Smith on Oak Street in Dallas. And so I'll go ahead and close this. And so now we might also want to report for this. So again, we can use the integrated report mill report designer, or we can auto-generate a report. So I'll say create report, and I'll call this my address book. And again, we'll select some attributes, name, address, city, state, zip, and phone. And I'll go ahead and save this, and we'll call this address book. And here's our report, and we might want to actually access this from our input screen. So let me go ahead and use the copy tool, and I'll copy out this version of the report, and I'll go over here to my input, and I'm going to go ahead and say show in editor. So in the designer now, we have the automatic auto-generated form. And I'll just go ahead and paste in that whole image, and I'm going to move it to the bottom right hand corner here, and I'll go ahead and put a stroke around it, and I'm going to change its URL to point to the address book, RPT. And then I'll simply save this, and I'll go back to show in viewer, and we see we've got our button now, and if we hit run, it'll launch our separate application, and again we can view and navigate through our addresses, and when we're ready we can say generate report, and here's our report, and we can bring that up in the platform PDF viewer and print it and do whatever we want. So here we have a fully automated generated application in JavaFX and Java Inventor in just minutes. And this is the end of the tutorial.